I will. Okay. For the script. Good morning. For the record, I'm Chris Young, chair of the HDC Sign Advisory Committee. Let's confirm access. Members, please respond with an aye when I call your name. Kevin Kuster.
Aye.
Ben Norman.
Aye.
Paul Wolf.
Aye.
Okay, and staff, Esmeralda, you're on the line.
Present.
Thank you. This meeting of the SAC is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. That order, posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom with video and audio recording, and we're being broadcast via YouTube on the town's YouTube channel. With no member of the public having asked to speak, this meeting will not feature public comment. Let me just verify, is that the case, Esmeralda? Anybody asking for public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, thanks. Materials provided to members for the meeting or provided during the meeting are, unless otherwise noted, available on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name's called. Let's direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and taking of minutes easier. Votes will be conducted by roll call. With that said, let's move on to the meeting. So we'll call it to order at 9:02 a.m. on February 1st, 2022. And do we have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Ben, are you in favor?
I'm in favor.
Kevin?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I am as well. So we have an approval of the agenda. Do we have an approval of our minutes from the last meeting?
Don't have those minutes ready yet, sir.
Okay, well then we will hold that for the future meetings. Nothing under public comment or preliminary discussion. So let's move on to the first item on the old business agenda, which is Mass Audubon. And I believe Sam is on the line.
Yes, that's right. I'm here.
Thanks, Sam. So after our last meeting, I think you had sent some information back in. Do you want to just summarize that for us?
Absolutely. So the comments that I had sent in with you all, for you all, and first I'd like to thank you for the time to meet last week. I know we didn't have a quorum, but it was just helpful to see where you were all, at and how, if there's a path forward where we can, mark our boundaries of our sanctuary and, still adhere to the ordinances to maintain the character of Nantucket. So what I had shared in my email was I've been in discussions with the environmental police officer, Sergeant David Wright, because we've had some instances of, vandalism, encroachment, or poaching on our properties. And he shared with me some resources from the Mass General Law. It was Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 9, which references, establishment of a wildlife sanctuary and posting. And he had explained to me that as a wildlife sanctuary or trust, we have a legal requirement to conspicuously post our bounds. And that given those issues of vandalism and encroachment, the EPO, the environmental police, is not in a position to enforce our land rules without our bounds being conspicuously posted. And then upon conversations with like the Conservation Foundation, with Cormac and the land bank, they'd said that using road boundary signage has been a valuable tool for them in terms of discouraging misuse of their lands. And in all, I'm hoping that our sign can be designed in such a way that, we can kind of walk this line and pursue this valuable land protection tool, but do so in a way that's compatible with, your charge and just maintaining the character of the island. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have you I think we had asked for you to look at the locations and the number of signs. Was there any change to your application as far as what you're requesting?
So at this point, I non-formally requested
what?
a change, given that new information in the court. I wanted to see if, if that changed anything. But I was able to pull that, from this map you're seeing here, there are about 7 entrances to Sacajah from Pulpus and Quidnet roads. And five of those represent road entrances and 2 are trail entrances. And that sign total we're asking for is 20, and that includes signing entrances as well as signing a boundary that isn't, you can see we have multiple different parcels, signing a boundary that changes land ownership. So not signing boundaries that, transition to Mass Audubon property.
Okay, let me open it up to the board members for discussion. Kevin?
Sure.
Yeah. I'd be curious. Well, first of all, one question is where you have your signs along Pulpus Road next to the pond, what side of the road are you putting this? Are you proposing the signs to go on? Do you claim the pond or the other side? I'm not sure where the sign's going there. And maybe what I'd like to see, what would help me is if you can stake some of these out, at least along Pulpus Road. That's where I'm mostly concerned. It's just really hard to tell where they're going and what side of the road. My other comment is I really don't think they need to be 4 feet tall. I think something under 3 feet is probably doable. I think 4 feet's a little bit up there. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Should I
Okay,
respond?
Let's let all of the board members comment, and then we'll circle back to you. So I'm going to give it over to Paul.
I wasn't here for the last meeting, so this is my first shot at it. My reaction is, wow, 20 seems like a lot in a fairly short space. I just wonder if it needs to be that many signs along the road. That's my only concern.
Okay, and Ben.
Yeah, I wasn't here last time either, but I think that the sign that's been shown that Land Bank uses to mark their properties is sort of, has never bothered me and has always kind of reminded me that there's a lot of natural land to explore. So, I have absolutely no problem with marking these boundaries. To me, it makes complete sense that, road accesses, should be marked. So paths, the obvious paths and parking areas. 20 feels like a lot, but I know that if you look at that map, they're spread out into Quidnet and up Hoyks Hollow, I believe that is, or I think that's Hoyks Hollow. I just don't see this all that different from what the Land Bank does. And I think if the Land Bank never asked us to put up their little blocks either. So I think it's a slippery slope, but I don't really have an overall problem with this.
Okay, and so my comment, I think that the 20 does sound like a lot, but when it's spread out over a stretch where you're not really getting a sense of all 20 or even perhaps more than one at a time, that to me, that would be the most important thing, is that we try to eliminate multiple signs just being at the same entrance or in the same line of sight, where on the map being such a distant view of the island, the dots appear to be right next to each other. I'm not sure if in real life they would be quite as close. And the other comment on the 4 foot height, is that you're showing the land bank sign posts as 4 foot high, along with like the conservation. I'm assuming that the conservation foundations are the same height because relative to that split rail, it looks about right. But I don't think a split rail fence is quite 4 feet high. I'm just not, I think it could, those posts might actually be a little bit lower. So I just don't, like Kevin says, I don't want to create these posts that are too tall. But agreeing with Ben that I think that we should allow for some sign markage or trail markings with signage. So Kevin, you'd asked for marking the location. Sam, are you in a position where we could have you mark these, just little surveyor stakes or something along those lines so that we could just get this, reviewed on a personal on the ground level?
Yeah, I think I could look into doing that. Ideally, because it's going to take some time for the signs to get fabricated, and I'm hoping to get them in before April and the spring sets in. But if that's what the commission requires, I'd be happy to go out and do that, and also respond to some of the other questions to clear things up a bit.
Sure, go ahead.
So
feel free to reply.
Great. So I had a few different questions come in, so please speak up if I missed your question. But the first one is, which side of the road are the signs on at Pulpus? And so I have my application open here to the side. So it does kind of bounce back and forth, but I think the area that you were concerned about, Kevin, was kind of right in the where Signage Pond is closest to Pulpus Road. Is that right?
Yeah, I drove out there and I was curious whether you're calling the pond at that side of the pond your property or the other side.
Yes.
So that's all I'd like to really see is in that area there is just how far apart they really are.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Is it possible for me to share my screen, Esmeralda, or because then I could just with my cursor kind of.
Yes, you may. Let me stop sharing so you can proceed.
Great. All right. Should be up shortly.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so I'm zooming in a bit here. So is this the area, Kevin, that you were speaking about, or just in general, these 4 posts here?
We can't see your screen, Sam.
Oh,
I can.
I can.
yeah, I can see it too. Yeah, that whole stretch there, it looks.
Okay, so
In other words, there, if I recall, there's a couple of spots at least one spot to pull over on the pond side.
yeah,
I'm concerned about that being signed up because it is such a, it's an attractive vista, and I don't think anybody's going to be hunting on the pond, but that's where I wasn't clear where your signs were going to go. I think if we can just, even looking at this map, it's hard to tell. If we could just get a better sense along that stretch of Pulpus.
Okay.
Because it looks like there's, even if you go back further, what would that be, west? There's just a lot of signs in that stretch, and that's one of the last rural areas. And thank God you guys are keeping an eye on it. But there's really no signs in that entire stretch of road along there. And I understand the need for them. I think that we could classify them under, public information. But I'm just trying to clean it up as much as possible. That it would seem to me that when you enter the area on the east and enter the area on the west, that in between that should be enough to say this is where you can't hunt, but
Mhm.
the other question I had, and it may help in removing some of these, is if what most property owners do if they don't want you to hunt is they just post the property with a very simple, red and white placard. I don't know if that could be augmented somewhere so we don't have so many, what look to be more advertising oriented signs. That's just a question.
Mhm. Well, so going back to this here, so these would be on the north side of Pulpus Road, so closest to the pond. This sign here actually indicates we have a trail that comes out onto Pulpus Road. So that was demarcating the trail entrance.
So that, pardon
Mhm.
me just for a second. So that, as an example, doesn't have to sit right on the road, does it? I mean, it could move into where the trail starts a little bit, right?
It could, but people come from the south and try to find this trail. So that's why, as of our last conversation, you had said to, what if we are just focusing on entrances? And so I thought that was worth having visible from the road.
So is there a place to park there, or?
There is a small parking lot right in here that people use to cross the road, or they continue south through the moors, and then you have the Cross Island Trail. But for this, this is it's a public boat ramp because it's a great pond. There needs to be public access to the pond. So it just so happens that falls on Mass Audubon property. So felt that was appropriate on the north side of the pond. And then these two here are actually I know the pullout you're talking about. That pullout is owned by the town, and we own on either side of that pullout. And we're dealing with an issue with some unauthorized work that had taken place that was conducted by the town in this area. And so we were looking to have our bounds clear on either side of that pullout just to avoid, future issues. And it didn't come out in this map for whatever reason, but our land ownership does continue on this shoreline until about right here. And then it transitions to the Green Hills. And then this is also another dirt road and access, kind of trail access to the pond. That would be the north side of the road. But it's for this area, it's about 2 miles of road with about 14 signs.
Okay, I guess I understand your point about some work being done there, but that's different than putting a sign up for that purpose is different than putting a sign up for keeping hunters away.
Well, I think
you know what I mean. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to be down hunting on the pond. Is that what you're thinking? Or
so I last week I actually did encounter some folks that were hunting on the pond, and it's a difficult position because these hunters have been hunting for some time on the pond. They were hunting waterfowl. A part of our mission is protecting these species. So it does happen on the pond. And I think part of it, oh, sorry, please continue.
Well, I don't know if anybody else would like to kind of get a sense of where they're going there.
Maybe that's the point. I can, I'd be happy to go out there and post maybe these two can, or if the northern side of the pond is of concern, I'd be happy to, get a stake and take a photo, and perhaps those are not part of this approved application. I'm not sure what's possible in terms of conditioning, but I'd be happy to do that to clarify.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. The other thing I think would be helpful with this is, I know this is maybe getting a little bit into the minutia, but are these right up to the setback? Are they right up? Are they 5 feet off the road, 10 feet off the road? Are they, you know what I'm trying to say? It's just, these are hard to say. If I were told to install a sign here, I don't know where I would put it necessarily, because it's really vague. You know,
No, that's a great.
I mean, because if you look down Pulpus Road, and we haven't really tackled it yet, but the space in between Pulpus Road and the bike path, that's all town property, and everybody from the land bank to homeowners have put in stones and signs and everything else in there. And it's starting to get a little bit out of control. And I think you get my point. I just, you know,
Sure.
That's a real important drive. I'm all for letting people know that they can't be in some area, but for instance, where you go down that boat ramp, you probably don't need the sign right on the street. It could go as you just start to enter the path. In other words, I don't think you necessarily need to see it from both sides, because you have to, if I remember right, you have to kind of turn to go down in there anyway.
Mhm.
So it's just some of the nuances of how it goes through that you know, curve, because that's just, you know, really an attractive part of property. And don't get me wrong, I'm really glad that your organization is there doing what they're doing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, thank you for the comment.
I think that I'm okay with the signs themselves that you have designed, and I'd like to see the posts be shorter. I mean, I think you could go ahead and make those. It's just about where they're going to go. You might end up with more than you need if you make all 20, but if you're concerned about time, that's my thought.
Well, that's really helpful to know that the design, the placards themselves are not, because we could begin fabricating those and then work out the final number, but we'll need replacements, so that's not out of the question. To address your next point about the height, happy to reduce that. If I think you're right, I don't think a split rail fence is quite 4 feet high, so happy to reduce that to 3 feet. And let me see what I had for other questions here. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment.
One of the things I've noticed when you think about locating these things, one of the things I've noticed with the Conservation Foundation signs is that they will occasionally set them back in a little bit and, mow a little area around them. So they're not quite right in your face, but they're there.
Yeah. And I think we could definitely consider that. And about the setback, when most of these signs that, what I'm envisioning is, like you had said, like the land bank or the Conservation Foundation, they're not right where the grass meets the road, but rather I'd probably say, anywhere from like 5 to 8 feet setback from the road. And I think we want to be careful about having to mow or maintain these boundary posts, because I'm the only full-time staff member on island. So I am, the property manager, the permitter, et cetera. So, but I think we can make sure that they're conspicuous, they're visible, but they're not right in your face.
So for today, why don't we let's see if we can get a motion to allow them to begin production. It seems like everybody is generally in favor of the signs. Okay, so location, this will be a, how would we draft this to, it's not recommending approval, but this is more of a, I think we would have to hold for revisions if we're not going to give the full recommendation for approval, which would be required, it would require locations. But should we hold for revisions based on solely needing the locations to be identified? So therefore, we're in principle agreeing that the signs can go into production. Does that seem
Yeah, I
like
think
the proper motion to make?
I think a motion to make could be, Paul, would be motion to approve boundary marker signs as submitted at a height not to exceed 3 feet, with final locations to be held for revisions. So he just has to come back with the
Okay.
locations. And that,
Okay.
and to maybe stake out that curve around the pond. So in other words, I'd like to approve the signs and we'll finalize the locations when he comes back.
Okay, so but I think the mechanism has to be that because we can't send them up for approval. That'll end the process. We'll hold for revisions solely to identify the location of the signs.
Yeah.
We're approved, and we're with assuming a 3-foot height limit on the post.
Then he can make his signs.
Okay. Right. Okay. So the motions hold for revisions, assuming a 3-foot height restriction. The only request for revisions will be locations to be identified and approved. Is there a second for that motion?
Second that.
Thanks, Ben. Paul, are you in favor?
Yes, aye.
Kevin and Ben,
Aye.
and I am as well. So thanks, Sam. I hope that gives you a pretty clear direction from here on out.
That does. Thank you so much
Okay.
for your time. And I know you have to move ahead, but to clarify, when you say to revise final locations, like what is it that I need to provide to you all to make that clear? Do you?
I think maybe some photographs of the sites that give us a clear idea of where the signs will be located and marking those along that Signage stretch so that they can be viewed would be helpful. And I think it's safe to say that you don't have to take 20 photographs, but if you say, here's the example of, these 15, meaning that they're going to be set back or how they're going to be set in relationship to the property bounds and the road, and give us a sense of where they're going and beyond that map, which is just not so clear.
Okay. Yeah, and it seems like special attention to that stretch of Pulpus. So definitely include that.
If you could mark those, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please mark
Great,
those
thank
with some
you.
surveyor stakes or something. That would be great.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank
All
you.
right, thanks. All right. Esmeralda, can you help me with the next item on the agenda? I don't have mine up in front of me. So we have Isaiah for the exercise facility on Orange Street. I think you're on the line. Is that right?
Yep. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Okay, so you were not, were you present at last week's meeting or at the last meeting where we discussed this, that I think this is your third visit with this sign application?
I was not present, and
Okay.
I guess maybe I misunderstood, but I thought when we had met previously that you had said, even though the meeting was canceled officially, that since we had reviewed it, I didn't need to attend the follow-up subsequent meeting. So maybe that was my mistake.
Yes, no, well, we had not, so to bring everybody else up to speed, there was not a quorum at the meeting, so we just gave some general comments. Then when we had quorum at the second meeting, the board expressed concerns about the location on the gable end of the building, as well as, I believe, just overall signage, the quantity of signs. So
even though I didn't make the meeting, I do appreciate that it was recorded. So I did get to go through and listen to everyone's detailed comments, and I totally agree. I understand what everyone is saying. I think there's maybe a little misunderstanding about my intention, but ultimately I do see the board's point about it being in a gable end there.
Okay, so have you, let's just be clear about what we're reviewing. We're strictly reviewing the one sign, correct? The projecting sign was already approved at a previous meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And just for context, I want to point out that I generally am pretty thorough. I did come to 2 meetings with Kadeem, and we went through the sign book together, and he conditionally told me that this shouldn't be an issue because it was a corner lot and the sign was, reasonably sized. And my gosh, Cumberland Farms has got like, a billboard, and it seems not unreasonable that you would get, a small sign approved. That corner where you see light blocks,
Sorry.
it wasn't a foolish decision. I'm not assuming you're going to permit a sign. It's that corner right there is kind of a contentious place. There's a lot of background noise. I'm not sure whose microphone it is.
I think it's Esmeralda.
We have people, when you come around the corner, it sort of feels like Cumberland Farms Central. And I think because of the history of this building, 117 Orange Street, the community is not clear and may often assume that Cumberland Farms owns our parking lot too. And so at night, and I don't mean to be grotesque, but we have people who fornicate in a corner there in the dark and leave contraception on the ground, as well as, cigarettes and beer cans and everything else. And I have half the kids from the high school football team working out with us. We're open 24/7. There's no lighting, there's no cameras, and there's barely any signage. So it makes sense that people are a little bit confused, but also it's a security issue. I'm adding new cameras all around in the parking lot, motion detection on the back, so the lot will light up when somebody walks over from Cumberland Farms. And I'd like the opportunity with your support to really designate that this is a new business. I, spent millions of bucks renovating it now. And I think that some proper signage is not unreasonable. And when I had met with Kadeem, the idea was to have sort of a sign visible from each side of the building on Williams and Cherry, where the parking lot entrances are, to really make it clear you're pulling into our lot. And then after listening to your comments and reviewing the sign book, I agree, this maybe isn't the best decision, and probably my feeling was a more prominent sign on Orange Street, because we have a 2.5 foot square sign, a very small sign, and then maybe moving the sign on Orange Street to the parking lot side. So if you do pull into the parking lot, it's pretty clear you're pulling into our parking lot and not Cumberland Farms parking lot. And there's a safety issue with every car, it seems, coming down Williams, cutting across our private lot. We have customers there, we have kids there. There's a dog wash there, is kind of congested. And, I just think we have a right to establish our, private business parking lot, and without the need to have, a dozen no parking signs all over the place. Just so it's really clear. And I think right now it's extremely unclear. There's one very missable 2.5 foot square sign on Orange Street, which, yes, to confirm, was approved by you. And that's it. So in thinking, I submitted an update in rethinking, this approach based on what you said. I submitted some new artwork to consider: a more prominent sign on Orange Street and moving the sign on Orange Street to the back side of the parking lot.
Okay, so Esmeralda, if we're looking now at a revised, we did ask for representation and revision, so we've received both. Looking at the new request, it's to put, that's the, taking your projecting sign, making it into a wall sign on the back of the building. And then, Esmeralda, can you show us the wall sign on the front facade? And
obviously
Isaiah,
that's
what
a
is
very
this?
bad, that's a very bad artistic representation, but I more just wanted to discuss the general approach, and then I'll revise the actual artwork once we are in agreement of what the sign can be.
Okay, so what is the size of that sign that you're proposing there?
Whatever's appropriate. I mean, this sign would be too small, but I would assume something about maybe 6 to 8 feet wide and about 18 inches high on the Orange Street side, and not 4 lights, probably just 2 small inconspicuous lights. But I was just trying to, you know, compare coming around the corner there, what we're competing with for you know, visual space, if you will. And, you know, I don't need to be Cumberland Farms. And this is a historic building. I want to be, for lack of a better word, classy or appropriate. There's actually a request for a 3rd sign I added, which was a historic building designation, small sign, or not even a sign, but a identification marker. Nonetheless, I'm doing my best. I think this is my 10th HDC trip on this property. And I feel that I'm doing good service to the neighborhood and creating a good, you know, looking appropriate building. And so I don't want to cause anybody any undue discomfort or stress around our signage. But I think it's important for our success, to be frank, that we capitalize on some of the visibility. And so as I looked at the building, I felt like, according to the sign book, you know, there's a sort of obvious place for a sign. Tends to be over a door, tends to be in the main structure. And as you know, on a gable end on a corner, it doesn't look great. I'll totally agree. I was just trying to sort of say, hey, this isn't Cumberland Farms, to everybody who's headed over to Cumberland Farms. But I think that, you know, this approach would be more appropriate, look better. So that's kind of where I landed. Yeah.
All right, thanks. I think we get the idea. Let me open it up to the board for comments. Paul, do you want to start?
Chris, I really don't have any comments, no.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, I think the initial submittal of the gable end without a door facing Cumberland Farms wasn't going to work. So this, what's in front of us now with the kind of corner board-esque sign centered below that gable window, I think that can work. I think the scale just needs to be right. And then moving the wall hanging sign as a wall sign to the rear seems fine. The alternate and probably more historically sensitive option would be to leave the projecting sign where it is and move a corner board like sign to the rear of the building. But I think our guidelines are willing to, you know, I think what is being proposed can work. Even though I think from a historic and just historical settings sense, it's not as appropriate. And as far as, you know, safety and protecting your parking lot, you know, that parking lot's been there a long time and people do things, weird things in weird places. I don't know. I don't think signage is going to solve the problem, unfortunately. So I'm sorry, but good luck.
All right, Kevin?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. As far as location, I do not think it should be on that gable end. I understand that it's a highly visible end, but this is a 1-story, you know, addition on the main mast that I think would be really inappropriate for us to start and set a bad precedent. I think a suggestion might be, I agree with Ben. I think that the projecting sign on the front is actually would be more visible than mounting it on the wall, because you're going to get it from traffic going both directions. I might suggest, another projecting sign on the rear, so that when you look into the lot from the street, you can see that back sign projecting by that back door, and give that a little more visibility. The other thing that I'm very, very concerned about is the size of the logo and the type font, and being used on this sign. We have asked everybody, from Xfinity to Federal Express to modify, and Stop and Shop to modify their fonts to fit within our framework. And I think this is the wrong place for this kind of a logo and this kind of a type style. Those are my comments.
Okay, so Kevin, let me just clarify. When you first said you felt the gable end, you were referring to the original application facing Cumberland Farms.
Yes.
Okay. So this wall sign that's being proposed right now, for putting aside historic precedent on this building, I think that it is allowable for the guidelines, that assuming we get the size right, and then talking about the design, whether the font is 15% of the overall sign, or they want to modify the font to be appropriate. And Isaiah, to the point of Cumberland Farms, their font is an appropriate font. So that's how the wording Cumberland Farms got to be more than 15% of the sign. Whereas your logo and your font would not be considered traditional. So that's where we're addressing that. I also agree. I think using the projecting sign as, if you're going to move it to the back of the building, keeping it as a projecting sign, just from a practical point of view, might be smarter, because you would get a little bit more visibility coming down Ferry Street. But that's either way. I think that sign could be used as a wall sign on the back. So would we have? We would need to see this sign sized appropriately. I think if you're saying 6 feet, a wall sign, that elevation does allow for a wall sign that would be 6 feet by 18 inches, as far as
Chris,
what the guidelines call
there's
for.
no door there.
Sure.
Chris.
No.
I
He's
just wanna make
talking
point, but
about
there's no-
moving it.
Oh,
Ben, he's talking
absolutely
about
back
moving
there.
it to the. No. I think Isaiah is saying there's not going to be any sign on that end. He's moving it to above the door on Orange Street.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Okay, I thought you were talking about the gable end facing.
No. I'm saying this sign right here, if this is what he wants to do, put a wall sign, take down the projecting sign and use a wall sign.
I'm withdrawing the original request for the gable end on Cherry.
Cool.
Because I agree it's not the
Yes.
appropriate for the sign book rules or the building or the direction.
Sorry, yep, I agree.
Right,
Sorry.
I'm saying this location. So if we were looking now at the application being revised to ask for this wall sign as shown on the screen, the guidelines do allow for a wall sign, at the main entrance. We just have to get the size appropriate. Isaiah, you mentioned 18 inches by 6 foot.
Well, Chris, I would appreciate if you guys would give me the guidance on what you think the sign size is that's appropriate, given that Cumberland Farms, I think, is pushing 8 to 10 feet. But regardless, I'll work with whatever you think is appropriate. And then, of course, I can adjust the artwork all day long, but it's hard to get the artwork right when I don't know what the size of the sign should be. And I didn't want to keep going, spending money and time revising. I thought it'd be better if I just get it straight from you guys, what you feel is appropriate. And then, of course, we can hold for revisions, and I'll get the artwork updated based on what we decide and come back to you with that. If that's okay.
So that, my opinion, does anybody else on the board want to speak about this location being a wall sign? I mean, Ben, Kevin,
No, I mean, he can certainly have a wall sign there. Like I said a minute ago, I think it would be a mistake to remove the projecting one, but
Yeah, I'm fine
That's-
with leaving both.
I mean, I think that what you have to consider though, it looks to me like your, it looks to me like your size in that sign, in this mock-up is probably a little bit bigger than 6 feet.
Yes, it's an eight. I basically just.
I would say, if you,
It's an 8-foot sign, maybe even 10-foot sign. I'm not sure exactly. I just sort of photoshopped it over and was trying to show comparatively. But I can agree that it could be, a bit smaller, probably 6 feet. Is 18 inches or 2 feet a reasonable height?
I think so. I think so. That's about 3 shingle courses. That seems appropriate.
Well, why don't I at least start with that guidance? I can come back with something sized a little bit more appropriately for the size of the sign, the fonts and the layout of the artwork, and then we can take it from there. If that's all right.
Okay, I think that would be great. So let's have a motion to hold for revisions that would clarify the design. Does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks,
Second.
Ben. Paul, thank you. Kevin, are you in favor?
I,
Okay, Ben
I'm in favor.
and Paul.
Aye.
Okay, I am as well. So thanks, Isaiah.
Hey, thank you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.
You too. Right.
Hi, this is Caitlin from Sign.
Caitlin, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Good. I apologize. I have to step off the line for just a moment. Kevin, I'm going to transfer the chair over to you for a few minutes, if that's okay.
sure.
So Kevin, take over. I'll be right back.
All right. You want to tell us what you've done here? It looks like you submitted a new.
So this is replacing a sign that was already there. It's slide 6. And that sign, slide 6, is where the old sign was. And that old sign was 104 by 28. So this new business is looking to replace the old sign with the same size and with their information in the same location.
Okay. Who would like to comment first, Ben?
Sure. Yeah, so Steve Lindsay's old office, and that picture showing his sign was helpful.
Yeah.
Esmeralda, could you look at that again real quick? Yeah, there it is. So yeah, I mean, it always felt like a pretty big sign there, but you can see how it's kind of a little more decorative. It's got it's not a rectangle 24 by 104 or whatever the dimensions are. It has some character. It kind of fits in with the gable form. So I'm looking at the new one as a straight hard edge rectangle, and it just feels too big for the space. I realize that the sign has historically been there, but the one that's being proposed just feels a little too big for me. Thanks.
Paul?
Yeah, Kevin, could I see the mock-up of the new sign? Yeah, there it is. I think Ben is right. It's kind of in your face. I don't know what's the nature of this business?
Yeah, so slide 8 also is a better representation of what it looks like from the road, because it is set back a bit.
Yeah.
But this business is a beauty business. They do Botox and other esthetician
Okay.
type.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of people finding it.
Yeah, it's very set back.
The only other comment or question I have is the color of the blue.
That would be a light blue.
Yeah, I'm not sure we have some standard color charts for signage, and the blues seem to be getting out of control. This is not one of the standard colors. It's the standard, I don't know what it's called, but there's a little brochure that lists all
Yeah,
the appropriate colors, and I think that would be, it's more of a blue-gray, I think.
yeah, Folger blue. We can
Pardon?
adjust that to Folger blue. Are you referring to?
Does it say Folger that we said?
Yeah,
Yeah, that sounds like it's probably right. I would think that would be much more,
okay, we're open to adjusting to that.
okay, good. All right, that's all I have, Kevin.
Okay, could we go back to the sign? I would agree. I think that I think you have to adjust the size of your sign to fit a little better with the type that's in it. So it looks a little less like a Band-Aid. Do you have any kind of a edge detail, or how thick this is going to be, or is it framed, or just the blue line?
Yeah, it would just be the framing it. In terms of adjusting the size, if I could interject really quick, or on side 6, like the old sign, if you see how it's an arc, would you maybe be willing to make it like thinner? So instead of 28 inches, maybe it's 12 inches and long, so it's more of a thin quarter board than a thick quarter board.
Would be good.
I mean, it sounds like it would work if you want to
Okay.
take a look at that. See, do we have lights? Yes, no?
No lights.
Okay. Do we want to hold for revisions on this then for a narrower version?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor, Ben,
Aye.
Paul?
aye,
I'm in favor as well, so we'll just hold that for a revision to size.
Okay. Is the logo okay? You're okay with the font and all that?
Yeah, it's a serif font. I don't have any issue with it. I don't know if anybody else does.
Okay.
That was
Checking.
good.
okay.
Thank you.
What do we
Okay,
have
Kevin.
next? Oh, well spent.
I did return. Well handled, guys. So are we on to Alan Bell?
No, this next one I think is Teasdale.
Okay.
So this is a dance studio, and they're looking for 2 signs. It looks like the first one is the 30 by 6, and this is going to go above that front wooden door, and it's a quarter board. And it's on slide 5 is a image of what it would look like, and it's right there, the picture to scale.
Okay, why don't we look at both signs just to get a sense of the whole application?
Sure, and the second sign is going underneath the Sibley Lidl sign, and we're proposing the same size as that sign underneath it.
Okay. I think we'll let the board members just comment on either or both as they go through their. So, Kevin, do you have any thoughts?
It's a little hard to tell without seeing a little bit more here. But I wonder if a projecting sign either by the door or near that corner board would suffice to cover both so we wouldn't have to put another sign on the gable end.
I know this building well, actually. I worked in this building for 2 years, so I can say that Sibley little sign is relatively small,
Yeah.
and it's not that visible. You really need to be, this building is sort of set back and it's on the curve. And there's a number of parking spots between the front of this building and the street. So it's really, for example, this door that we're seeing in the picture now, you really don't see from anywhere unless you're standing at the doorway, because the street is off to the left and curving further away to the left relative to the picture we're seeing right now. So I'm not sure a projecting sign would do a whole lot of good there, Kevin. Whereas
What about
even
towards the left hand side of that window? Would you see it that way? It's on the same plane as that outside wall, or is it too? I'm just trying to not have two signs stacked on the end where there's no door.
Right, I agree. That's my fear, is that sign, that's sort of a precedent we don't have anyplace else. So I'm not sure how that would be satisfied. And are Sibley and Little staying in this building? Are they just, I know that they own the building, or they used to.
Yeah, they're staying. And side 3 gives a better representation of what the building looks like from the road. It's like more at an angle, so it's easier to see.
Okay. All right, Esmeralda, could you show us number 3?
I think, yeah.
That is slide number 3, unless you want me to go to the other application. Maybe.
I was just trying to show them both sides from like the road, how it's like kind of on an angle when you pull in. But yeah.
This is what I was waiting for. Oh,
All right.
can I see the locus again?
Paul, do you, yeah, or Ben,
Oh,
Ben.
oh, wow.
Go ahead, Ben, what are your thoughts?
I was confused on where Teasdale was. I'm sorry. I don't really, I mean, I think the one on the gable end is not following our guidelines, but given the location and the actual size of that tiny little thing, I'm somewhat indifferent to it. The one over the door seems fine to me. The font seems a little weird, but again, not to like downplay the location, but it's pretty industrial and off the beaten path where we are. Last time I was down there, I can't remember. So you know, that little sign almost feels too small. I mean, it almost feels like it could go up a bit just to give it some heft. But if that's what they want, I'm absolutely fine with it.
Okay, Paul.
I think what Ben just said, I agree with 100%. If that's what they want, I don't think we should push for more signage or projecting signs. It is very difficult to see from anywhere until you're at the building. My only other comment is on the border on the sign. It's in 2 different colors, and I don't care for that. I don't think it's appropriate. It's either pink or it's blue. I think it ought to be one color, probably the blue.
Okay. Would that be, is that something that the applicant will agree
Yeah,
to?
sure, that we did
Okay.
Yeah, we did the pink because that was their logo and we had already modified their logo. So we were trying to pull in some elements. But I think they would be open to changing it. Do you have, so the blue over the pink it's like more of like a green, I would say, than a blue. But would that be the color you prefer versus pink?
No, I just think it ought to be one color, not 2.
One or the other. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that would be your request, if you tell us what you want.
Okay. Okay. I would have to talk to the applicant.
Okay.
I think the green
I-
at least ties it into Sibley.
Yeah,
Right,
Okay.
it does help tie it together. But I agree with what Ben and Paul were saying, and this building is hard to see for most places, so I don't think that this will be a huge precedent issue for us. So does anybody want to make a motion?
so moved to approve as presented with color changes on the border.
Okay, so are we giving them the option? We'll approve it with either pink or green, or do we want to, just
Sure,
as long as it's one?
yeah, pink or green.
Okay, so we'll see if the board agrees. Does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, Kevin, are you in favor?
Aye.
And Paul?
Aye,
And Ben?
All right.
Okay, I am as well.
Thank you.
Great,
thank
thank
you.
you.
So the next application, this is for Island Pharmacy / Island Value. I included parts from his original application for Island Pharmacy to get a sense of what the sign was like, because this new sign is going to be exactly the same with a different name. He's looking to change the name to Etc., spelled on slide 10, and the sign design would be the same as is already there.
Move approval.
Okay. Okay, do we have any
I'll second
discussion?
that.
I want to make sure I understand something. Are these letters carved, attached?
The
Painted?
letters,
Yeah,
these would be raised. So
So-
carved from the board.
okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is because those letters that are up there now are plastic. And
Yeah. No, they're wood. They are wood. We made them. They're wood, and
Oh,
they are
okay.
applicated to the original board.
okay, got you.
Yeah, but we're
Fine.
replacing the whole thing. So whole thing
Okay.
down, and it's going to be brand.
Okay, got you. I'm okay with it.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Kevin, you're in favor?
Aye.
Ben? Paul?
Aye,
And I am as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next up on our agenda is,
So this
Are we
is
over to-
Advisors Living. So this one is a little bit more complex, and I am understanding that probably one of the two will be approved, but we have both. And this would also include revisions to the directory, which I'm not sure if I need a separate application for that, because it's just a directory. We would paint the, like if you see on the right. So the first sign they're looking for is a quarter board above their office windows, and it'd be 84 by 10.
okay. And let's see the second sign as well, just so we can get a sense of what we're looking at.
So they also would like another sign in the front, which is a circle sign. And they would like that sign in the front because it is hard to know that they are in the building. And then the other two businesses have projecting signs, so they just would like it to be visible.
Okay, this building has a master sign plan that was approved.
Okay.
Are they taking over for a previous tenant?
No, they, I don't think, I'm not sure who was there, but they didn't have any signs there, so.
Okay, I think we'll have to pull out the master sign plan, because that's the whole point of it, is to advise new tenants and the landlord to what they should tell new tenants their options are.
So
Um,
on slide, there's a directory and it shows like just the 2-story financial and then there's a space, a little thing, plaque. So that's where, I don't know if that's the directory or part of the plan, but.
Yeah, I think it was, as I recall, that there was that directory sign was definitely included because it's one of the few freestanding directory signs on the island. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that pulling that file will be important for us to understand sort of what we're doing here, because it would mean a modification to that if we were adding any new signage. Let's get a read from the board on their general thoughts. Kevin?
Yeah, the sign over the windows is a no-go for me. That's I am curious what else there is on the master sign plan for how we deal with this on the entrance. But I think kind of bigger than that for me is the style of the sign is. I just don't think it's appropriate with the other signs or on the building to have a logo, stretched out like this. I think we're just getting too far away, from traditional signage. And when a building has more signs on it like this, at least by keeping them typographically consistent or, closer together, at least they begin to work somewhat, together. But those are my comments, I guess.
Okay, Paul?
I agree. The one on the second floor doesn't meet the guidelines. And just, this is more of a question. Do we have a problem with the, not the letter sign, but what a directory sign, adding a new tenant on that? Is that appropriate?
I think we should look at what the master sign plan called for, but I do believe that sign is an approved, pre-existing non-conforming sign.
Yeah, well then why don't we just look
so-
at the master sign plan?
Yeah, we'll
before
just
we
have to see how
discuss
that.
it?
But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I think
that
that's a good idea.
isn't part of the reason for these directory signs is that they're supposed to reduce the number of signs on any one building. So if at the end of the day that sign isn't actually reducing any other signs, I don't see what the point of it is.
Right. It counts as one of the two signs, no doubt. So if it's, I think here they're asking for 3. So clearly that's one too many. And of course it would be, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just saying that, being a non-conforming sign, it is something that, given the choice, I'm sure we would say, let's have it removed, but that would impact all the other, tenants there. So I'm just looking for us to give guidance if we're going to pull this master sign plan so that we can review this application in the context of that, so that you can be prepared for what future comments would be coming regarding the design. I think
Right.
Kevin's point is well made that, the font should be, they should look at changing their font so that it's more appropriate. And if they're going to end up with a wall sign, which is a question, I think that second wall sign above the windows, we don't have multiple wall signs. And now, granted, the last application that we just reviewed, we approved that, but this is a clearly more visible location.
Right.
Perhaps doing something as I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. A projecting sign on the front, or, if there's room for a wall sign on the front that's appropriate. But this is a tricky one. Hopefully the directory sign would get people's attention and help them identify the location by itself. I don't know.
It is spaces left for signage without looking obnoxious. And So that's the challenging part. If you have a preference between the like front area or the back facing area, that would be appreciated to know so we can come back more prepared.
Well, one question, where is the door that you actually go through to get to that space?
That's the blue door in slide 6. That's the front, like near all that.
Okay,
I don't,
so that's sort of coming off of the parking lot
Mhm.
behind the building.
Yep.
Okay,
so maybe right there.
yeah, so Sue, the Story Financial is well placed if that's their doorway. What does do we have a picture of that side of the building that shows almost like slide 4, but
Right
maybe
there.
slide 5? Yeah. Yeah.
So is this door
So
for
slide
Nantucket
5
insurance?
is just to the left. So I think this picture is just to the left of the last picture we saw, sort of like the same
Yeah.
elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose you could do another projecting sign there where that downspout is.
The downspout is.
That's what I was
But-
thinking.
But again, I think you have to take into consideration the other 2 signs that are there. They may have weathered a bit,
Right.
but they're still kind of in the same color palette. And I think a round sign might be a little odd there. I'm not sure. But making it kind of visually work with those other 2, I think would go a long way.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we hold for revisions, and Esmeralda, if at the next meeting we can have the master sign plan available to review as well, that would be helpful.
Understood.
And does that seem like an appropriate motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
do we have a second? Thank you.
Second.
Kevin, are you in favor?
Aye.
And Ben?
Aye.
Thank you.
I think Paul, thanks.
Yeah, aye.
Paul didn't aye, but I'll aye, so we have who carries. Okay, unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
So this next sign is going to be a new salon. It's Davia Salon, and she would like a sign above her window there.
Okay, so we saw this before. Looks like it's been revised. And is there any change being planned for the Joe's Barber sign?
No, because the owners have requested that it stay there. However, that is between, I guess, you guys and the owner. So I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have a conversation on this? Ben, you want to start?
I have no problem with this. I don't think.
Okay,
It's
Paul?
weird, but I got no problem.
All right, Paul?
The question is Joe's Barber Shop still going to be there?
Yes, the owner would like to keep it there, but if
Not
it
the
has to be
sign, the
removed.
business.
Oh, the business? No.
So it's not a barber shop anymore.
No, I don't believe so. I believe it's a
And I don't think
salon.
it's appropriate to have a sign there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I like the Davia Salon is fine. But Joe's Barber Shop, if he wants to put it inside, fine, but not out on the road. Why would he want it there? People are gonna be pulling in and saying, I want a haircut.
I don't know. I can't speak for the owner. So that would have to be.
I'm sure it's grandfathered, but that. I just think it's inappropriate if there's no business
Okay.
there.
All right, so we can make that part of any motion. Kevin?
I would agree with Paul. I think unless there's some reason to keep a freestanding sign for a business that no longer exists, doesn't make any sense. Is the background on your new sign, is that white or off-white? I can't quite.
Yes, it'd be white and navy blue. And we are applying for her salon sign. And so I guess if there's maybe an issue with the Joe's Barbershop sign, maybe that would be a question for, or a topic for him to speak on and deal with. And it's difficult to have her have a sign and then have him not be willing to take it down. And then it's an endless circle.
But the landlord is technically the applicant, so we're approving it on his, through him. So it would be basically he's not allowing a tenant to have a sign if he refuses to, let an
Okay.
approval take place. So that would be the mechanism there. So any other questions about colors, styles on the salon sign?
No, I'll make a
Okay.
motion to approve with removal of the freestanding sign.
Second,
Okay. Ben, are you in favor?
No,
Okay, that was a no?
no,
Okay. Kevin
Aye.
and Paul?
aye.
Okay, I'm in favor as well. I don't think we should have signs representing things that don't exist. So that would be for the landlord and his tenant to work out.
Okay.
All right, the last application we've got for the Rose and Crown.
Yeah. So they are adding a different, or replacing their old sign with a new shape, same logo, but it's a new shape. It is going to be 2 feet diameter, carved and painted, double-sided projecting sign.
4 square
Which is
feet is
comparable.
appropriate for a 2-story building.
Comparable
Okay.
to the old sign as well.
Got it.
Well, I'll jump in on this one. I think that, I wrestled around with this one last night. I think that, I think the old sign should be maintained, frankly. I think that this, to me, falls in a category like Pacific National Bank and like Club Car and the pharmacies. It's a long-standing traditional sign that is very well made and I think could be rehabbed. I think that following today's guidelines, we wouldn't be able to have a logo nearly that big anymore. So I would really like to see this, be the historical sign that it is and have it maintained, and because I think it's very handsome and adds to the history. So that's my comment.
Paul?
I think what Kevin just said about the historical nature of the old sign, I agree with. It's much more attractive and much more fitting. If we were going to talk about the new one, I don't know why the word Nantucket has to be on it. We all know where we are when we look at the sign. So, but I'd rather, our recommendation be keep the old sign.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, can we look at the existing sign again? Okay, there it is. You know, I agree. I think the old sign is really attractive and but I think that we should request the administration, I'm thinking Holly Backus is the right person to do this, is to research the history and how old that sign is. You know, if that sign was put up there in the 80s or something, I don't know. I think we should know how old that sign is and what the historical context is before we just say we need to keep it there. So that would be information I'd want to know before we start really dropping the request to make them save it. The new one, I think it probably, as long as it meets the guidelines, I think it's hard for us to say much. I mean, is the logo too big? I don't know if that is a logo, that graphic in the middle. It doesn't, seems more just like a decorative graphic. I absolutely agree with Paul that it does not need to say Nantucket on it. So you know, I think the Rose and Crown is looking to change their sign. Do I agree with it? That's not, you know, do I find it better than the last one or worse? I don't think that's up for my judgment to express, but I think that knowing the history of the old one in full would be important to make a final decision. And then if it is not historic, I don't know. The new one's okay, where this one is really nice. That's my opinion, I guess. Shoot, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with everybody's comment. I like the old sign a lot. I believe we saw this sign come through in the last 20 years. So it's, I don't know how we could get some records on that, but I'm not sure, like you said, Ben, I'm not sure it's up to us to say that an applicant can't put up a new sign that would otherwise be in compliance with the guidelines. And the new sign is size-wise and design-wise, I agree. I don't think that graphic is really much of a logo. Kevin, we could you know, just argue that point, I guess. But
Yeah, I think, frankly, that I think it is within our purview to, to maintain some kind of history on these signs in these buildings. We did the same thing with the club car just recently. And we did the same thing with Pacific National Bank about 3 or 4 years ago. There are certain icons and things that I think are important to the island, and people's. It's like we didn't change Bartlett's when they redid theirs. We probably wouldn't change Brotherhood. There's some classic icons that I think it is within our purview to say, hey, this is part of the historic fabric. And I think the sign was very well executed in its day. I don't know for sure exactly how the new one being proposed would be carved. What is the section through this? How does the things intertwine? Will it be as complicated as the existing one? How thick is this? What kind of edge is the? I mean, I think there's the new one is just a little. It's a little too off island looking for me, I think, and we're not going to see very many new signs coming in like this existing one. They're just not being made very much anymore. So I think if there's any opportunity to save it, we should save it.
all right. Oh, we can. So do we want to make a motion to hold for discovery on this so we can learn a little bit more? Is that, or I guess our options are that flat out deny the application, or approve the application, right? We're not asking for revisions necessarily.
Well, I think what we could ask for, that seems reasonable, is the same thing when anything is being asked to be demoed on any other HDC project, is what is the condition of this? And, you know, can it be repaired if it needs to be, or, you know, is there a good reason for it not to be reused? I mean, that's what we would do if somebody was trying to tear down, you know, a wart on an old house.
So I
Okay.
move we hold for discovery.
Okay, so why don't we ask the applicant to give us a little bit more information on the condition of this sign, and we'll ask Esmeralda to do some research on the history of the application for this sign. If that motion is okay, so that's been motion made. A second on that.
Second.
Thanks. Paul, are you in favor?
Aye.
And Kevin?
Aye.
And Ben?
Aye.
Okay, I am as well.
Quick question, if I could.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm assuming, it could be not the case, but I would assume that the reason for applying for a new sign would most likely be because the old sign is not usable. I mean, it's a beautiful sign, we all agree. So, I mean, I guess we can cross that bridge when we come to it, but so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so that would
It's a
be,
new sign.
if you could do a little research on that for us, so we understand the condition of the sign. You know, we still might come back and say it's the board's pleasure that, you know, that the work be put into restoring it as opposed to replacing it or changing it. But let's at least know what we're talking about, I guess, so we can,
Okay.
you know, give
Fair.
the best review possible.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, that's the last item on the agenda for applications. Has enforcement been added to the bottom of our agendas?
It has.
Okay. And have you had a chance to dive into the enforcement world yet?
I have not, unfortunately, so I really don't
Okay.
know what that entitles. So if you would like to enlighten me, please, I'd be happy to take notes, or at least direct me to the right place where I should be researching this or looking at.
Sure. Well, so traditionally there's been a list kept. Hopefully that is somewhere in the database that you'll have access to of ongoing issues, sign advise notifications that have gone out. So if a violation,
don't think of me. Think that tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life.
Oh my God.
say hi to John for us.
Hey.
Get out of there. Get out of there, Johnny.
Come on.
Get out of there.
Wait for your own meeting. So there's a list of violations that has been generated, and a notice gets sent, a courtesy notice saying, you know, you're on the list. Please address the concern either by removing the sign or coming in with an application for the sign. And then if that fails to produce any results, there are violations, like actual citations that go out with fines attached to them. And every step requires a certified mail, you know, be sent out and wait a certain amount of time for them to respond. So that's something perhaps if you wanted to talk to Leslie, she could tell you what because she's really the ultimate, you know, head of that enforcement policy. But it's always been something that the person in your role has taken on. So, and then we try to
Chris?
help you when there's questions. Yes, Paul.
I might just add that those of us who are cruising around town and see violations might take pictures and send them to her, to Esmeralda, with the, I think with the address for sure, so that that can go on the list as well.
Right, yeah. So there
It's,
are
you know,
citizens.
we're getting into the time where we should stop blaming everything on COVID and get back to doing our job.
Right, and we have to find out, there was a suspension of certain guidelines during COVID. I know that I think it was a governor's order. We should probably find out the particulars of that because that had an end date, which might have been extended, I don't know. But if we could find that out, Esmeralda, if you would ask Leslie where that stands, that there was a moratorium on sort of enforcement of certain issues and signage was included in that. But we've said that once that moratorium ends, we need to clean up downtown because there are certainly signs that have popped up which should not stay. But I think so. If you could talk to Leslie and maybe try to find that database, because there is a list of ongoing, people that have received notices that might be in line for their second notice. People that maybe haven't received. We don't know exactly who's received what. We just find out when they come back to us with either a request for clarification or applying for the sign that they were notified about.
Okay, thank you. I will work on that then.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Any motions anybody wants to make?
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Ben, are you in favor?
Favor.
Gavin?
Aye.
Paul?
All right,
I am as well. Thank you.
thank you.
All right,
Goodbye.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you.